Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Talks between Narad and King Prachinabhati. Text number 80. Maitreya Uvacha Bhagavata Yo Bhagavan Narado Hamsayorgatim Pradashya Yamun Amantriya Siddhalokam Tato Gamat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: The great sage Maitreya continued. The supreme devotee, the great saint Narad, thus explained to King Prachinabhati the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. After giving an invitation to the king, Narada Muni left to return to Siddhaloka. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Siddhaloka and Brahmaloka are both within the same planetary system. Brahmaloka is understood to be the highest planet within this universe. Siddhaloka is considered to be one of the satellites of Brahmaloka. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka have all the powers of yogic mysticism. From this verse, it appears that the great sage Narad is an inhabitant of Siddhaloka, although he travels to all the planetary systems. All the residents of Siddhaloka are spacemen. They can travel in space without mechanical help. The residents of Siddhaloka can go from one planet to another individually by virtue of their yogic perfection. After giving instructions to the great king Prachinabhati, Narada Muni departed and also invited him to Siddhaloka. Om Aganaatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master is forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. So we're continuing or ending, close to ending, the discussions between Narad and King Prachinabhati. In this verse, it's stated that the supreme great saint, the great saint Narad, thus explained to King Prachinabhati the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the living entity. So it seems like it's not much. You just got to explain who God is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who the living entity is. That's you and me and all the other living entities here. One verse that comes to mind, Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagavana Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasad Bhakti Lata Bija. Usually the living entity doesn't get the opportunity of hearing from such a great soul as Narad. He is more bound up or caught up in the struggle for existence in the material world. So it's only a very rare thing that one is able to get the association of the pure devotees of the Lord. Mamaivam sajiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasastani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. Bhagavad Gita explains that the living entities are struggling in this material world with the six senses, which include the mind. Maivam sajiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasastani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. So this is the position of the living entity. He is not liberated. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally Satchit Ananda, but the Satchit Ananda of the living being, the part and parcel, the small part and parcel of the Supreme Being, is covered by illusion. And this illusion is described at the later stages of this chapter to simply be a dream. In fact, I'm just going to confirm that by see if I can find that statement. Yeah, in the purport, the last verse of this chapter. Everything happening within time, which consists time consists of past, present, and future, is merely a dream. That is the secret understanding in all Vedic literature. And Prabhupada begins his purport, shortish purport. Prabhupada says, factually, all of material existence is only a dream. It's all happening in the breathing time of the Supreme Lord in his Karanadakshay Vishnu form. The universes are emanating from his transcendental body, and the living entities are given the facility to try to enjoy in the material existence. They enter, the Bhagavatam says, into the forest of material enjoyment. So it seems like a good idea to go for a walk in the forest. But if you're inexperienced, then you could easily get lost. And the Bhagavatam describes that the living entity becomes entangled in his journey. He thinks, oh yes, this sounds like a good idea. I could be like my father. I could be able to enjoy. And this is natural. Prabhupada very much links this idea to that of a child and a parent. So it's very natural for the child, because he's very small, to think that, oh, yes, I could do this, I can do this, I can do that. And gradually, one becomes, we see that in children. I've mentioned that a number of times before, that the children, if you can remember, I don't know, some may have little children, but some may have to remember that because the children grow up very quick. But when they're very young, the children, they're seeing, and this is also understood in the teaching realm, that children, basically the parents or the teacher is God for the small child. And the child, everything is provided by the mother or the father. Let's use that example specifically. The mother and the father are providing everything. They're providing the bed for the child. They're providing the food for the child. The mother's breast is the milk for the child. So they're looking, wow, this is my provider. They're providing everything, my comforts, my enjoyment, my entertainment, my everything. And this way, they think like that. So, but what happens is you see the child very quickly wants to jump up on the lap of the mother or father, and then they climb, climb, and they're on the shoulders. And then when the child's able to, they want to sit on your head. And I've thought about that a lot, that it basically shows that they want to be you. They want to be God also. They want to be in this position. Although it is unnatural, natural, yes, but unnatural due to their bodily constitution. They can't be the parent, but they would love to be, have that freedom, that complete ability to enjoy according to their desire. So the living entity is just like that. He or she enters into this dream of the idea that one can act independently and be able to enjoy in that way. So it's a very long story. uh, uh, Incarceration in the material existence is a very long story. Birth after birth after birth, different species of life. And we hear about Lord Brahma's existence and we think, wow, and, you know, trillions of years, we think, yeah, it's a long story. But then we hear, so everything's relative. It's relatively long, yeah? Millions and millions, thousands, hundreds of years is a long time. You can only get maybe up to 100 in this Kali Yuga in a material body. So hundreds is a long time. Thousands of years, oh, that's a long time. Millions of years, inconceivable length of time. Billions of years, trillions of years. So it's a very long journey. But in comparison to eternal time, it is nothing. And in comparison to the breathing process of the Karanadakshaya Vishnu, one exhalation, all the universes come into existence. And then breathing in, they all are dissolved and are retained within the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Narada Muni has been explaining at great length to King Prachinavari this whole position. And the whole position of the living entity is a great science. Pumsa striya maituni bhavam tayor mito ridaya granti mahur ato griha chetra sutapta vidhe janasya mohoyam aham mameyati. Aham mameti. Thinking in terms of I and mine, the living entity is captured by the material energy, and the big capturing net is the male and the female, Pumsa Striya. And we see that in all the species of life. If we look, there's not only one bird, but there'll be two birds. There's the male and the female. And that is going on in all of the different species of life. And due to this misconception, the attraction between male and female for a somewhat what is it, material body, the living entity misconceives in this way, and he becomes attached to his body, and he becomes attached to all the things pertaining to the body in the form of relatives, friends, children, land, possessions. In this way, he increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine, and the whole thing comes around the living entity, the body, the extensions of the body, the land. He thinks the land of his birth to be worshipable. Bhagavatam also says he's no better than a cow or an ass in this condition of existence. So the great devotees of the Lord, like Narad, they are preaching in this way. And once the light goes on, we talk about that often also. Turning on the light, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep in this lap of the witch called Maya, the illusory energy, which is relentlessly keeping you here in this material world? Now, generally, people don't say that, wake up, wake up. In material life, they're saying, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Cover yourself with this illusion. Through the different modes of material nature, one becomes covered. I was sitting, just share that, yeah, my son recently was in hospital for some operation. Fortunately, it went relatively well, so everything's may return to normality soon. And he was saying that it's such a wake-up call when you have some serious accident, and like that, he broke his arm, as many of you will know, but some will not. So he broke it, and then he found a tumor there in his wrist, had to be removed, piece of bone has to be replaced, and pins and all sorts of things. Um, so it's a real wake-up call when we see our mortality, and we realize, wow, this is serious business. At any moment we may die. We say padam padam na vi padam natesha. There's danger at every step. And I was just saying last night we were having a group discussion on Bhagavatam, and my son was sharing that as a wake-up call, and I thought, I'll share this idea. I was going up and called in for some petrol at the local petrol place down in Kumu, and I was also getting a wake-up call. And once we become a little, what you say, experienced or familiar with this whole process, there's wake up calls everywhere. And the wake up call I was seeing was next to this petrol place was a bottle shop for alcohol. And I was seeing how the painting it was, an advertisement, and the thing on top, it was called, what was it called? Black Bull. And the little figure on top was like a demon. And it was in these colors of red and yellow and black. And it was just like a demon. Look, you picture a demon in hell. And then I saw this man go. I saw two people. One came out, and he looked pretty basic, but one person came out and he was just really, really tamagun. And I was thinking like that just see how the modes of material nature. Now, we can relate this to this story. We see King Prachinabhati. So Tamagun grossly in the Kali Yuga. Prachinabhati, he is a great king and he's performing according to his own idea and to the teachers that he's had that you should perform sacrifice. And this sacrifice will be pleasing to the Supreme and it will make it will be very good for the people. So he's very exalted in many ways. But those modes of nature, so his is more passion with some goodness and direction from Vedic instructions. So there's all sorts of nuances of these modes of nature. But whether you're in Kali Yuga and the Tamagun fully, pretty much. And sometimes you say, oh, this is very passionate activity. Or this, we sometimes think something is the mode of goodness, but in Kali Yuga, everything is very dark. Even what we think is the mode of goodness in Kali Yuga, often it's not. You say, oh, this classical music. Someone says, oh, the classical music, that must be in the mode of goodness. Maybe not. If you listen to it, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da dum da dum, and it's classical music considered, but it's passion. It's very strong passion, actually. Um, so you can get the idea that these modes of nature are always mixing. 3 times 3 is 9. Mix them again, 81, and then you mix them until you get 8,400,000 species of life. And they are all perfect and bewildering the living entity in whatever species he or she is in. So wake up. Wake up calls are everywhere. And that is the business of the devotees of the Lord, is to awaken ourselves and to try to awaken others on this path of devotional service. So Narada Muni has given so many wonderful explanations that this attachment, male and female, keeps one bound, expands into conceptions of self and extensions of self in the form of mine. The land of my birth is worshipable. I identify myself to be this body made of mucus, bile, and air, which is, what would you really want to? Well, what else can I identify with? That's what I've got. It seems like that's what I am. So if one is fortunate, we mentioned at the beginning, one is able to get the association of the pure devotees of the Lord. And this begins the whole process. So the invitation is being given by Narad he says, after giving an invitation to the king, say, hey, Narad says, I'm going back to Siddhaloka, where all the inhabitants of Siddhaloka and Brahmaloka at the end of this the manifestation of the universe, they're all transported back home, back to Godhead, along with all the other associates of Lord Brahma who are following very strictly the pure goodness of devotional service to the Lord in that supreme abode of the material world. So Narad says, I'm going. I've got lots of things to do, and please, you can come. So we'll hear about King Prajinabhari's response to the invitation of the Lord. Prabhupada goes on to explain that he didn't waste any time. He didn't waste any time to make everything just right. And it's such a strong tendency, I'm thinking, in my own life, that the tendency is to always want everything to be just right. Then you can make your move to whatever comes next. But chances are that everything might not be just right before you have to move on. And then I thought back to uh, in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness is an amazing shift. And we've discussed this many times, but we come in contact with devotional service. And then by that connection with devotional service, um, the lights start to go on. It starts, the Maya's illusion is dissipated, and one is able to penetrate through that illusion and start to see reality as distinguished from illusion. That is the message of the Bhagavatam. And when the living entity gains that, then he or she may immediately take it up. And that's what we did. And I'm sure in different ways, it's always different. 50 years ago, we did certain things in a certain way. The way we did it was go and hand in your resignation at your employment, tell all your friends that you've got this amazingly wonderful direction in your life, and invite them. And chances are nobody accepts the invitation, or very rarely. And you go and do what you know is has to be done. Because why? Because you're no longer in the dark. The darkness is dissipated, and it's like a curtain. Hmm? The curtain of Maya. So the curtain is there, and we are completely under the influence of Maya. And then someone says, wake up, realize that you're not actually this body. Do you say, I hand? No, you say, my hand. Do you say, I head? No, you say, my head. And so on. We understand, we gradually get this philosophy, and we think, wow, that actually makes sense. Then someone says to you, do you realize that all this killing is not a great idea? That human beings have a certain kind of foodstuffs. They're supposed to eat all the wonderful things like grains and milk products and fruits and vegetables like that. And human beings, that's for them. And there's a law called the law of karma. Oh, what is that? Now, everyone's heard karma. Still, we don't get it, but some do. So there's a karma. It's called a reaction to activities, and it's scientific. It's explained. Science explains that cause and effect. For every uh, cause, there's an effect. So that's supposed to be seen in every sphere of nature. So there's a karmic reaction if we act in certain and various ways. So we begin to think, well, this makes sense. I never thought like that. No one ever explained this to me, but now that someone's explaining it, let me do that. So you become a vegetarian. So you start chanting Hare Krishna. So you start reading these books. And then you associate, you see how nice it is to be a devotee and how ugly it is to be a non-devotee. Harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna. Where are the good qualities? It's explained that all the good qualities, such as of the demigods, such as renunciation and religion, knowledge and renunciation. So it becomes very attractive to see someone who is detached from this material uh, consciousness. And you think, wow, they're so attractive, these people, because they're not driven by lust and anger and greed, but they're seem to be driven, yes, but by another energy. Uh, Krishna says that's the internal energy. So we become attracted. Then we associate with such persons. We associate with their teachings. So our job as followers, disciples, grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada is to reflect a little, if we can just somehow have a little light in our way of being, so that people are attracted and they think, wow, these devotees of Krishna are very nice. So at least something, then we can show them the real light. The real light is in the Bhagavatam. That's the real source. And the Bhagavatam is giving light to the original source, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ultimately be here and understand that it's non-different. the holy name is fully potent, that the Bhagavatam has arisen just after the departure of the Lord to his own abode, accompanied by knowledge, religion, etc. People in this age of Kali will get light from this Purana, Puranarka Danodita. So our job is to reflect something, and so that people can gain the shelter of the great acharyas, the great incarnations of the personality of Godhead, and tamasi mai jyotirgama, they can come from the darkness, which is just a struggle. King Prachinabhari is hearing this from Narad, the struggle for existence in the material world, um, in the city of nine gates. So this is explained in great length in these chapters. We're going out into the world through the gates of the body. The eyes are perceiving. And I was thinking of that earlier this morning, that the eyes. Now, naturally, if we lose our eyes, it's a great calamity, but in one sense, a great benediction, in one sense, because what happens is we go into the world through the eyes. We see through the eyes the external world, and we connect with it. We do the same thing with our hearing. We connect with the sounds of the world through the tongue. We're tasting. The bodies are evacuating and so on. So there's the nine gates of the body that we interact with this material existence. And we become bewildered by this interaction. So the gates of the material body are explained at great length by Narada Muni to King Prachinabhari. He gives all the analogies. I won't try and remember all those things, but we've heard all those things. And King Prachinabhari says, "Well, I can't really understand a lot of the allegorical connections that you've made because this is very philosophical." So Narad sort of says, "Okay, got that. Okay, he's a preacher." And he thinks, "Okay, you didn't quite get that. Fair enough. I'll explain it this way." And then he, in this chapter, is explaining it very directly. So he's made inroads with his preaching in an allegorical way, and now he gives very direct instruction. And guess what? That got him. King Prachinabhari gets it, um, and it's interesting. I'm just thinking. It's said in Bhagavad Gita after Krishna instructs Arjuna. Krishna doesn't force him. He doesn't say, "No, I've explained everything to you. Now get your act together and do as you're told." No, he says, "No, you've heard everything, and now you do as you choose to do. You decide what to do." So just again, like a parent, they don't interfere with the independence of the child. Ultimately, it's so in a similar way. Narad is saying to King Prachinabhari, "I've given everything to you. It seems like you're onto it, and now I'm returning to Siddhaloka, and you might want to come there." And I was thinking of that point, you think, well, why does Narad not go back home, back to Godhead? Why does he stay in this material world? We cannot imitate this, but it's explained throughout Shastra that there's no difference, material world and spiritual world, for the pure unalloyed souls. They are fully absorbed in uh, sublime Krishna consciousness. So whether they're here in this world or in the next world, it's all service. Now, I can say those words, but the realization is very little, especially theoretically, I can understand, but the actualization of that statement, to come to the point where you're actually able to engage in devotional service and be completely transcendental, like Narada Muni. So whether it's no difference to him whether he's in Siddha Loka, whether he's in Patala Loka, or wherever he may be, or Krishna Loka, and there's no difference. It's absolute. And this is the nature of the absolute reality. So it's very exciting. And it's a bit disappointing in some ways because you understand how far away you are from that reality. Pardon me. So isn't it an amazing, uh, again, we use the word science, Srila Prabhupada says, science, jnanam and vijnanam, knowledge and wisdom, realized knowledge. Um, hmm, so that uh, that level of consciousness is what we are desiring, and it will take some time. It's a gradual process. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti rit karna rasayana kata tachjoshanat aswa pavargavatmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishiti. In the association of pure devotees, discussions of the wonderful activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead are very pleasing to the ear and satisfying to the heart. Mm. By the cultivation of this knowledge, one gradually advances on the path of liberation. Thereafter, one becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Bhagavatam says like that. It's a gradual process. Uh, and as we move along that path, we will be faced with success and failure. That's the very nature. Just like an aircraft when it's flying, it's explained that the aircraft is for a very large percentage of the time off course. So, and when you're driving a car, you can use the same example. Driving a car, you're always moving. You got to move. You got to adjust to keep on the road, to keep on the right road. So there's a lovely verse in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Jata Shraddha Mat Katashu Nirvina Sarvakarmishu Veda Dukatmakam Kamam Parityagepya Nishvaraha Tato Bhajeta Mampritaha Sradalurdita Nischaya Jusamanas Cha Tankaman Dukadarkams Cha Garhayan. I think it's 11, 20, 27, and 28. And those verses say, I won't go through all the verse. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'm trying to remember all the English translations. That what is it being? Jata Shraddha Matkata Shu. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories. Yes, we're all in that position. We've awakened a little faith, or a lot of faith, or complete faith, depending on where we are. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities. Hand up if you're disgusted with material activities. Put the hand up. Hopefully, I'm disgusted enough not to go into those activities again. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities. Knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery. Oh, Oh, isn't it pleasure? No, it leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense gratification. So this is the position of the kanista and the madhyam kanista uh, position, and one has to continue. Just like a child, I keep using these childish analogies. Um, the child is definitely designed and definitely will walk and then run. But in the beginning, the child walks a little, wobbles and falls, and gradually, we can take up our natural condition of being able to walk and run. So similarly, the living entity's natural position is not here in the material existence. It's not being driven by the modes of passion and ignorance. It's not struggling with the six senses, which include the mind. I'm sorry, I was thinking of this earlier, the mind, but as soon as I mentioned the mind, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, devotee who came here maybe a couple of years back now, he's very prolific in his writings, and there's one mantra he uses, and I've mentioned this before, but it's such an important mantra. He said, we have to identify the mind, but don't identify with the mind. Yes, like, what is that? That's we call it quirky quotes. He's all these quotes, so they're very quirky. But if you sit with it, this is an absolute gem. Identify the mind. When thoughts come to the mind, or come from the mind. Thoughts are coming all the time. It's explained. I think we have somebody's analyzed some person has analyzed 60, 70,000 thoughts every day. This thought, that thought, this thought, that thought. Vaisheshika Prabhu gives compares it to like what do they call it? A production line. You know, so there's a production line. Something's coming off the production line. It's coming on. So that's the mind. This thing, that thing, this thing. And when these thoughts come, we think, this is me. These are my thoughts, but they're not. They're the thoughts of the mind. And the thoughts of the mind come from the senses, and the senses are connecting to the sense objects. I see this, I touch this, I smell this, I hear this. This is coming from the mind. So when these thoughts come into the mind, we should immediately identify, this is the mind. Don't identify, this is me. These are my thoughts. No, they're the mind's thoughts. Your thoughts are that you are Krishna's eternal servant. Your thoughts are, as I have understood this philosophy, I have experienced a higher taste from devotional service. These are my thoughts. But these thoughts are coming from the senses. Mamaivam sajiva loki. Jiva bhuta sanatana. Manasastani indriyani. The indriyani. 6 senses, which include the mind. So it's such an important thing. So we're not the body, we're not the mind. And we go on to understand that we are the eternal spiritual spark animating this body, and we have nothing to do with it. This is the Brahma Bhuta platform. Srila Prabhupada in 1971 in Vrindavan on the 9th of November. He explained like that. Everyone in this world is desiring to gain something which he doesn't possess. And he's lamenting for something that he has lost. But when he himself realizes that there is nothing to gain and there is nothing to lose, that I myself have nothing to do with this material world, this is called Brahma Bhuta. This is the Brahman platform. So this is the position, the actual identity of the living entity. We don't belong here. We're being invited to go back home, back to Godhead, to associate with Narada Muni, to return to Siddhaloka, to associate with these great souls, these great teachings which are ever fresh. They're never hackneyed or old. It's the material world that's hackneyed and old. And people say, come on, these scriptures are written thousands of years ago, same old, same old. The modern world, look at the things you can enjoy. It doesn't stop. There's this technology, that technology. I better check time. How are we going? We're okay. A few minutes. Something comes on your phone sometimes. So some ad came up and it was China latest thing. I thought, I'll check out China just for a few moments. And I couldn't believe it. The place is falling apart on one side. There's so much social unrest in China. The economy is under attack. People are leaving China in so many ways. Big multinational corporates are leaving. There's so much because of so much falsity and false economic plans and so on. So that's all going on. And on the other side, they're spending millions of dollars researching all kinds of stuff. Cars, I was watching, so it showed you all these cars, flying cars, as though this is so powerful, the Maya. I was reading maybe a number of years back an article which said, just like in India, the idea that's presented is we can be just like the West. You can all have your fancy house, you can have all your fancy cars, you can have all these things. So, hey, the West's done it, so let's do it here. But this article pointed out very, very scientifically that the mass of people cannot have all those. It doesn't work. Mathematically doesn't work. When you've got 1 or 2 billion people, it doesn't work. The same dynamic, and it will happen. That dynamic will collapse in the West too. It's collapsing all the time, but So I'm sorry, I'm deep going in different directions with this, but the kingdom of Maya is so powerful. So I was seeing like that, and these things are simply phantasmagoria, and it's not created to actually ameliorate the suffering of the living entity. It's created simply to exploit, to gain profit. People are designing flying cars and cars that can go under the water and all kinds of stuff. Why are they doing that? They're doing it to make money because the living entities generally will take whatever they're fed. And if they're fed that this is going to make you happy, try this. You've tried so many things to make you happy and you've never been happy. But don't worry, we've got something new for you, some toy. Prabhupada says in Bhagavatam, it's simply a childish civilization, simply childish. A mature, uh, conscious living entity will not be bewildered by these things. So we have to come from the darkness, come to the light, uh, see Krishna everywhere and everything, see the message which is there. And Krishna says, if you want to see me directly, then you learn to see me. It's all possible. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability in man, Purusham Nishu. Just see that. I am the original fragrance of the earth. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to see if there's any points or just any specific point that you might take from everything we've been discussing and just reflect that back if you would like to. It doesn't have to be another Bhagavatam class. It's just a reflection to see if we spend a few minutes, yeah, maybe 5 minutes or so, and see if we can bring out some more little nuances on the subject matter of King Prachinabhari, understanding the constitutional position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity, and then giving that invitation for King Prachinabhari, not just to hang out with Narad and Sitaloka for the heck of it, not to stay in the material world, but to gain the eternal association of such liberated souls. That was his kind invitation. So we'll finish there. If anyone has any reflections or questions, we can try to discuss for a few minutes only.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
This such a wonderful explanation of the text. You nicely explained how Narad Muni was trying to make him understand through 2 chapters, and ultimately made him understand the purpose of this body. And you explained with so many examples. There is nothing. This body is a temporary vehicle. It lives when time is over. You have to just leave it and go. He has given all the advices to Prachin Bharishin, the purpose of this body, how this body acts with nine gates, everything. And after giving all example, Prachin Bharishin has understood that the purpose of this body, and is just living. The and he said, "This is the realized knowledge I'm giving you, and after that, it is up to you how you take it up. But my time is over. I'm going now." So it's a very, yeah, very important to understand. You see Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna has given all the uh, knowledge to Arjun, and lastly said, "It is up to you how you take it up." So in the same way, Narad Muni also giving the same parameter to Prachin Varishan. Now this is up to Prachin Varishan to understand and take action with immediate effect. So nicely explained how this material is turning around. But Srila Prabhupada, as we studied in this Lilamrita, the same thing, same connection we can see. Thus,
Uh-huh.
this world is is just like a child civilization, as we explained. So many things are happening for the satisfaction of the bodily platform, but nothing is working out. One after another, people are trying these, that, but the ultimate thing, nobody is happy. So that was the uh, takeaway for me. And so, only thing is devotional service to the Lord. That is the
Mhm.
ultimate goal. And we need to be at the stage of understanding this body is of no use. What is inside? That is to be related and to purify the subtle part of this body is more important than the outer cage, which is the gross body. And with that, I finish it here. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Hare
well,
Krishna.
nice explanation of all the points and bringing them all together. It's nice. Thank you very much for that. Any other comment from any of the other persons? Prabhus? Sorry, I can't. Maybe I can't hear. I can hear something, but can't hear much. Okay, so I couldn't hear what that was, but that's okay. So Mariji, it seems like we're completed.
Yes. I think Nandavish Prabhu is trying to say something. Yes, Prabhu, can you try again?
Yeah.
Ah,
No, there's no comment, so after you should end the class here. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your wonderful class.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa trupesya
Jai
krishna
Vajradhava
prabhu
Jai Krishna Bhagadevo Vaishnavadevyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Krishna Krishna Jai
Hare
Devotees and Bhagavatis. Krishna bless. Hari Hari.